Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for coming back and joining me in today's video. Um, in the past, for some of you who have been on my channel before and you've viewed some of my content on here, you may know that I recently just moved into my purchased condo and sort of the whole process of what that looks like. I haven't quite shared as much information on here in the past. In addition to that, I did mention when I was going on about a month or 2 months ago now, I think I mentioned that I'll be taking a bit of a break just to kind of settle into this new place. And I have taken that time and I'm back to making regular content on this channel. Um, In today's video, I think one of the things that I noticed through my experience of buying my condo is that oftentimes we don't have a conversation um, about what that looks like. Purchasing a condo isn't something that's often discussed um, very regularly here um, on YouTube channel or even anywhere, right? And I sort of just wanted to share with you some experiences that I had over the course of buying my condo, including one that almost cost me to potentially lose my condo, um, and in addition my deposits. Um, so this video is particularly going to be more about a story time rather than my regular contents that I used to make on this channel, where I share with you more financial based, although there will be some financial implications for this story as well. But let me just get into it, and if you have any question, please leave them down in the comments section below. Um, and yeah, so where should I begin? I guess as you're in the process of buying a condo, typically you'll meet with your realtor, and then ultimately at some point during that process you'll also meet with a mortgage broker. Uh, Oftentimes, one thing I noticed that was quite beneficial is having both your realtor and your mortgage broker having conversations together to ensure that there's synchronous information being passed from one party to another, and that can make the whole process so much more easier, especially when there's one document required from one party to another. If your realtor can have that information and your mortgage broker also has the same information, it makes it easier for that information to be passed along. Um, Once you've sort of um, been pre-approved and you found a place that you potentially are looking to buy, um, then ultimately at that point you'll need to meet with a lawyer and begin to discuss the idea of um, basically signing a contract that ensures that you know you get the property that you've purchased. Um, in my particular experience, um, I was looking at a bunch of lawyers. I was given recommendations by um, my realtors and including my mortgage broker as well, in terms of who they recommend I go with for lawyers. I looked at all of them and I decided that I wanted to kind of support a law firm that's you know from the same background as me, and oftentimes I find that you know many of these things can be quite challenging. When you have a smaller law firm and you have a bigger law firm, oftentimes um, from past experience, not that I've bought properties in the past, but from what I've heard from others who have done so, it can be quite difficult to sort of navigate which particular law firms you should go with and which one you shouldn't. If you don't particularly have any experience with doing so, so it's best to seek as many advice as possible. But in this particular case, I examined the quotes for lawyer fees from all the different parties that I spoke to, and I decided to go with one particular law firm for various reasons. Um, Ultimately, because I wanted to support a local um, law firm that I at the time believe would represent my interests well. Um, Over the course of the process of doing so, I contacted them and asked what their fees were and sort of what the process would look like. And at that time, they told me that, oh yeah, this was the price for this and that. Um, so then, okay, I said okay. They asked me to bring some informations, and I provided those information to them. Um, Here's where the story began to get more interesting. When I went to sign my documents, the document for the condos, the condo I was purchasing, um, I realized that the documents that they have was not the right documents. Doesn't quite fully reflect uh, the rate that I had signed with my mortgage broker. So I expressed that to them prior to going in, that, please make sure that you have the newer documents rather than the old one, because um, there's been changes in terms of the rate that I will be signing. And the paralegal that I spoke to, initially I was working with a female paralegal, and that person would seem to be handling the case quite well, and they were quite on top of everything. At some point, I'm not sure exactly what happened, but I was transferred to um, a different paralegal um, who didn't quite seem competent enough, in my opinion, at this point. I can say fully well that he wasn't quite competent enough to handle the case. Um, I provided him with the information that he needed in order to be able to proceed with bringing the right documents for signing day. However, on signing day, I realized that the document that he had was not the newer version of the document that he needed to have brought. So I expressed that concern with him, and he said, "Okay, I'll just you can sign the parts where you need to sign, and I'll change a certain part on it on my end." So that went, and there wasn't much problem in that regards. But that was the beginning of what tended to become much more of an issue. Um, when when I went in, I expressed to them that my bank is an online bank, and I don't currently have a physical bank, and as such, I do have a regular check that I can provide in form of payment um, rather than an alternative payment. They never expressed to me prior to then that they only accept bank draft rather than check. However, when I went to meet with them, they told me then that oh yeah, we only accept checks. We only accept bank draft. We actually don't accept um, checks. At this point, it was only a couple of weeks to sign to closing on the property, so I was now at a bind, right? Um, Typically, my bank, Tangerine, which I will now mention, is an online bank that I decide to use for this transaction. Um, their turnaround time is quite slow. Typically, like if you're buying a bank draft from them, it would take them quite a while in order for them to go through the process. Um, and have the draft issued to you or to your lawyers. So okay, I said okay, I'll try my best to try and get that to you as soon as possible to ensure that this process is not delayed. um, so off it goes. I contacted the banks, and they expressed to me that you know um, I can do some of these things, and it would be sent to the law firm. Um, so I ordered a draft, and it was issued, and it was supposed to be delivered to the law firm um, within 2 business days. So this process took forever for me to be able to get them to issue the first draft. This first one that I'm discussing, it took forever. I had to ask to speak with the supervisor, and then the supervisor had to like use some sort of um, clearance to ensure that this process goes through. Um, so ultimately, they did allow me to be able to order the draft and make it available to them as quickly as possible. However, when the law office received the bank draft, it turns out that there was a mistake on the draft, right? The name that was on the draft, there was an issue with some of the spellings on the names. So I I was told to go back to the bank. At this point, keep in mind now that it was maybe about 2 days to my closing. Um, at this point now, it was getting quite late and delayed for me to be able to ensure that they have the draft as soon as possible. I expressed to them that this was precisely why I had requested to use a check rather than a bank draft, and they maintained that, oh, they don't accept check. I'm like, which kind of banks don't which kind of law office don't accept checks? There should be multiple avenue for people to be able to make funds available to you. I asked if they had an account to be able to provide the funds into. They expressed that ultimately they don't provide their bank account information to clients. I was quite frustrated at this point. I was beyond frustrated with the entire situation at this point. Um, I um, I had no choice but to go back to the bank and express to them that again, there was an issue on the bank draft. Um, Here's where the story got more interesting, that they needed to issue a new draft, and I was closing as soon as possible. Um, the first lady I spoke to told me that, oh no, that's not going to be possible. And ultimately, I did spoke to a supervisor who expressed to me that, oh yeah, we are able to issue a new draft, and that should be made available to your law office by 5 p.m. that same day. So I said, oh great, fantastic. Um, However, at 5 p.m. that same day, I called my law office to ensure that they've received the new draft with the proper spellings and everything. My law office expressed to me that they've yet to receive that draft, and that nothing has been made available to them. So I went back to the bank, Tangerine, at this point, to express to them that this draft that you told me was going to be made available to my law office has yet to be made available to them. And the years where the story got really interesting. Um, they told me, oh yeah, in order for us to issue you a new draft, you'd need to send us the previous one that was mailed out to your law office, and then we'll need to have it in hand in order to be able to cancel that one and then issue a new one. And then I expressed to them that I was closing. I was supposed to be closing very very shortly, right? Like ordinarily I need to have this draft today to be able to ensure that I close tomorrow, right? So um yeah, many of the people I spoke to, nobody was quite receptive to ensuring that I received a new draft. They all told me that unfortunately there was nothing they could do. Yeah, I just need to make sure that the new draft, the previous draft is mailed back to them, and before they can issue a new one. I was growing quite frustrated with this situation. I was losing my mind. Keep in mind, I had a sizable amount of down payment that I needed to that's been held up by the bank now, right? And if that's not made available to the law office, that could potentially means I lose that deposit, and in addition to that, I would also be at risk of losing the property that I was purchasing. So I was beyond frustrated with this entire situation at this point. Um, so I spoke with so many different people at this point to ensure that, you know, whatever they could do to help fast track the process to ensure that my lawyers received the new draft with the proper spellings and everything. Unfortunately, there was nothing they were able to do for me. Many of them were just like, "Oh, sorry, there's nothing we can do." So, after growing quite frustrated and speaking to so many different people, I decided that the only other options for me is to try and find the phone number and contact information for the president of the bank to see whether or not ultimately they they're the only one that potentially can do anything at this point, right? Thankfully, as I was exploring all avenues to see who I can speak to within the bank to ensure that this process is um, further along faster than they currently are expressing to me, um, I found the email address to the CEO and president of Tangerine, and so I sent an email expressing my dissatisfaction with the current level of procedures for ensuring the new bank draft are made available to customers, especially in such critical situations where there's a significant danger of loss of funds, right, available here, and potential opportunity of losing the properties that I was purchasing. Um, I expressed that in very strong letter that I email that I sent to them. Um, the next day, my phone was blowing up. I don't know who got the information or got the email that I sent, but there was maybe about 10 emails and no 10 phone calls that I had received that same morning. Keep in mind that that next day was now a weekend, and typically they told me that, oh, we don't work weekends. So on that day, I received about 10 phone calls from a person named, I guess maybe I won't mention his name, but he was one of the supervisor from the bank, um, who went above and beyond to ensure that a new draft is made available to the bank. Um, I in this whole process, I was just contacting the law office to ensure that the information that they've now provided me is correct and there won't be any issues going forward from this point on. Um, I, I, I really quite find that entire process quite frustrating. At the end of the day, though, a new draft was issued and the banks um, made it happen in a timely manner. Although I did have to extend um, my closing day by a couple days, but ultimately I was able to close without any issues for without with that. Um, oh yes, let's go back to the lawyers after they now received the draft. Um, and they confirmed that they've received it, and I was now waiting for the closing date. I contacted the mortgage broker to express to them that I needed to have access to the unit by 12 p.m. Given that I was told by the building that I had purchased that um, given that the closing date was on a long weekend, long holiday or something, long break or something, um, that there would be an additional charge if I do move in on a long weekend, for security, um, maintenance, and those people that needs to ensure that the property is fully secure during the move-in process. That there would be an extension in terms of the fees that would be charged to me. And I expressed to them that there was no way I was able to further cover the cost of additional expense in that situation. So I had to move in on closing day. So again, I expressed to my lawyers that they need to ensure that I have the key by 12 p.m. that day, as I will be moving in that same day. Similarly, I expressed to my mortgage brokers to express to the banks that I was receiving my mortgage through, that again they need to make sure that the funds released to the lawyers ASAP on that day. That way the process can be moved along ASAP. And thankfully, when I called my lawyer that same day, he told me that yeah, they've received the fund. However, there is a shortfall of $20. Right? Like, this is the kind of things that you don't think about when you're buying a property, but oftentimes, apparently, there's now a $20 FTE fees or something like that, for transferring funds from your bank, from your lender to the law office. So that was charged, which reduced the amount that was made available to the lawyers. Um, but ultimately, the lawyers decided that they were going to waive that fee and make that available. I expressed to them that this was not communicated to me prior to now, so um, there's absolutely no other ways for me to make that available at this point. So thankfully, they were able to cover that fee, and everything from that point on went on smoothly. But this entire process was not not smooth at all. It was quite stressful, very frustrating at times, very challenging and very difficult at times. But thankfully, I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to um, close and now be in my property. Um, if you have any questions about sort of what the process is, if there's anything that you want me to go into more details about my experience with purchasing a condo in Alberta, please leave them down in the comment section below, and I will do my best to answer them there. Um, and yeah, if you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe and like the video if you enjoy it. If there's any topic that you would like me to cover in the future, either on finances or home ownership or any of those things, please leave them in the comment section below. Um, and thank you so much for watching this video, and I look forward to hearing from you soon.